it's really so hard to convert someone from a non-listener to a listener and to a podcast lover. I honestly try to do it with my friends all the time. And whatever conversation we're having, I just tell them, I have a podcast for you. Like, I know exactly what, you could listen to, but they rarely do. Or if they do, they're not going to listen to a second one as well and get into the habit of it. So that is really the kind of, philosophy and mindset that leads our approach to marketing. And that's why we focus so much on cross promos and, features in podcasting newsletters. And then when it comes to social media, it's a great tool. And my view is kind of changing on it a little bit.
Andreea Coscai, thank you so much for joining me on Podcast Junkies.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here and to be talking to you.
So we were chatting a little bit about mutual friends like Ariel, who apparently everyone in the podcasting space knows now. Yeah. And I'm just curious to how paths cross, and I've seen some of the things that you've been posting online and how busy you've been. So where's home for you?
Home is in Bucharest, but I have
Bucharest.
been
Okay.
everywhere a little bit
Okay.
and just kind of, back in the home base for now.
That's so funny. I just had a conversation with someone yesterday from Bucharest.
Oh, how come? Was it also
His
podcasting related?
It was podcasting related. His name is Eric Melkor. And he hosts a group of folks, like B2B podcasters, and he's in the podcasting space as well. So maybe I'll connect you guys, and it'd be surprising. I'm sure it's a small podcast network out there as well.
Yeah. Please do connect us. I mean, we're gonna get into it more later for sure, but I feel like that's something
Sure.
that could be worked on a little bit here, at least in Romania, having that community of podcasters getting together and supporting one another.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'd love to be connected. It's yeah.
How'd you end up there?
In Bucharest?
Yeah.
That's where I'm from.
You're born and raised?
Yes, born and raised here. And then I lived in China for a couple of years.
Okay.
And then I lived in the States for 5 years and then came back here because, I mean, I really enjoyed the States and meeting everyone there, especially the podcasting industry, which is, everyone is looking towards the United States. But at the same time, I was feeling a little bit tired of the hustle culture. Not that in Romania there is no hustle culture, because there definitely is, but I just wanted to reconnect with home for a little bit. So yeah, back here for now, back in Europe.
What brought you to the States?
I was doing an academic program, and then I was just getting into podcasting there and, stayed for a while. I was on the East Coast, and then I came to LA for a year. Two very different experiences, I have to say.
Yeah.
In terms of podcasting as well. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I was getting into production at first, working with the different clients as a freelancer, doing a little bit of social media work as well, which I have some thoughts on, which we might get to later. And then got into marketing with Tink.
Yes, you've been in the podcasting space a lot. So what was your earliest connection to podcasting? Were you coming into it as a fan, or how did you become aware of it?
So I think like everyone in podcasting, this is a bit, of a cliche story, but it is what it is. I've always loved the radio. I remember even being, like when I was little and I used to pretend that I was on the radio. I was in my room and after my dad would come barging in and say, I told you not to talk to strangers on the internet. And I would say, no, you don't get it. I'm on the radio right now.
That's so cute.
Yeah. So I always loved the radio. And then I started hearing about podcasts when I was in the States. I had a mentor, Senem Pirler, who is amazing. She is Turkish, but also in the States a lot. And she's more of a sound artist, actually.
Yeah.
But she recommended The Heart to me. The Heart from Caitlin Prest. And I mean, I just fell in love. And I was just wondering, wow, you can do this with audio? And this is a podcast. And then I started listening to another one, was Believed from NPR, which I just love. That's kind of the podcast that I'm still into, more narrative and investigative. Yeah. So that's kind of, and then it just rolled from there.
If you can think back to yourself as that small girl, fascinated with the radio, can you think about what it was that was attractive to you, or what it was that was really exciting about that?
Yeah, I think because it wasn't even about being a DJ on the radio necessarily. I mean, that was
Hmm.
part of it, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
I wasn't listening to, radios that were playing the news when I was a
Yeah.
kid
Yeah.
necessarily. I think it was just always fun to play with my voice. Now thinking about it, I was also doing theater a lot.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, acting and using my body, but also my voice and playing
Mm.
with it. And I actually never thought about it before. So it's such a great question. And it makes a lot of sense that those things were intertwined. Yeah.
How long did you study acting for?
6, 7, 8 years even.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
trying, I mean, I really enjoyed it and I wanted to keep going with it, but it's such a hard world and so,
Yeah.
yeah, to make it in. So I just wanted to do something more stable. But actually, I've been doing some voice acting recently in some
Okay.
projects. So yeah, it was fun to get back to that and reconnect.
Yeah. When I was in New York years ago, I studied acting for about 3 years as well. So
Yeah.
got the headshots, had aspirations for that, but then I just got pulled into other things like entrepreneurship related. But it's funny, when I was starting the podcast, I was thinking about the ideas and what was inspiring me. And I remember that show Inside the Actor Studio with James Lipton, and he would like interview these actors for like an
Oh,
hour. And
I
I
have
was
to
like, oh,
check it
you can
out.
actually, yeah, I don't think it's around anymore. I think he might have even passed on, but essentially he would have like an actor on and interview them for like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And normally you see an actor on stage and or on a screen, you know nothing about them and they're just playing a role. But here they're like being their own person and like
Yeah.
talking. And I was like, oh, I want to do that, but for podcasting, like tell the stories behind the microphone. So that was like the one connection from acting to podcasting, because I
Mm.
was really a fan of that show.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I think, well, I mean, actors do their PR, tours all the time, but it's so
Yeah.
different to have them, yeah, on a mic with an amazing interviewer than just in a,
Yeah.
video clearly made to promote whatever they're working on. Yeah.
How do you feel about the influence of AI and its effect on, people creating podcasts? We're actually testing, we have a show with another company that's doing like a small news recap that's pure AI.
Mm-hmm.
And as a voice actor, I think about all the services that
Yeah.
I've used in the past where I've used voice actors and some of them, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering what you're hearing or how that's affecting the industry.
I mean, that's a great question. The issue I posted today on Eurowaves was about AI.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, yeah, it's such a hot topic, but also it's so important for the European industry because one of our limitations is the language differences. And
Yeah.
because of that, we cannot, work together as much. We cannot do cross promos even in marketing or, co-productions are also difficult. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely an important topic. I am personally torn. I think, of course, there are good things about it, there are bad things about it, but honestly, I don't think we can avoid it. I think we
No.
we better get on that train, um, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just make sure that we're using it in a way that is ethical and culturally sensitive, and then also think how we can use the skills that we already have in,
Hmm.
kind of working together with it and finding
Yeah.
new ways that we can use our time, But I think, yeah, for voice acting, I mean, I wouldn't want to lose the human element as well because that's so
Yeah.
important. But yeah, so it's really,
Yeah, it's interesting, and I wonder, it's obviously related to demand and how much people are probably going to miss that, as because it's like a pendulum, right? There's going to be such a swing now to the AI, and you can sort of hear they are getting better and better, but there's some, hopefully we don't lose that ability to detect that warmth in a real human voice, because we could get so, they could just keep improving the algorithm, and they could like, there's a warmth knob or something
yeah.
to make this sound more warmer. But I think there'll be, it's almost going to be like if it's human, it's going to have like a more valuable like value for people who are looking for
Mm.
content. Like it almost is like we're going to get to a point where it's going to have a label on it, like created with all humans.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Yeah,
already that on social media, for example, right? Like created with AI. So
yeah,
why wouldn't that be the case for audio?
yeah,
And you're so right. There are some tools that make it sound so natural, um,
yeah.
which is so creepy, but insane and
I
fascinating.
know
And
it's crazy because do you remember that movie AI with Jude Law?
no,
It
tell me
was with
about it.
Steven Spielberg created it, and it's about basically a future where the AIs are sentient and they're AI robots, but they're living in the world with humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is where we're getting to, which is kind of weird. But eventually, like they start treat them bad, and so they become like a minority. And there's like people that against robots. And I don't want to spoil it. It's a fantastic movie. You should definitely check it out.
Yeah.
With Steven Spielberg directed it.
Hmm.
It's really good, but it's so like prescient, like about where we were headed, and or even movie on the other side, movies like the Terminator. You're like, oh, okay, like
Yeah.
some of that stuff is actually happening.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think like when ChatGPT started really picking up, I had a thought that one of the most important things we can learn as a skill is how to talk to robots.
Hmm.
Because if we're going to be working with these tools and using them for our benefit, because I use ChatGPT like daily at this point.
Yeah. Me
It's
too.
become like my research assistant, and it's a matter of just how creative you can be with the prompts.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, I agree with you. It's a fine balance, but I don't think, I mean, cat's out of the bag, and there's no going back at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. And it's definitely what you said also, knowing how to use it. I think, when Google appeared, people having to learn, how do you Google? How do you use Google? So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's kind of the same thing. If you use it for the right reasons and, with intention and all of that, then it can be really useful. I know another thing that people are really worried about is the effects on the environment, which is, a very
yeah.
valid concern. Yeah.
Lots to think about. So, what was your first podcasting job?
My first podcasting job, I'm sure it was a production one.
Okay.
I forget which one was the very first, but I know one of the
Yeah.
first ones anyway was for St. Washington University in St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
And they did this podcast that was archival and historical on the architecture in St. Louis.
Okay.
Yeah. And
How'd you get that job?
through connections, how it always
Okay.
happened. I forget who connected me with them, but yeah.
And how did you, because obviously people like are entering the podcast space and listen, and then there's still people like, as long as we've been doing it, there's people that are just discovering it now. So how did you feel as that being your first job? Were you practicing like editing on the side or like, I'm
Yeah,
curious about that.
I
Yeah.
was. I was for sure because for this one, so I was doing production, but that also meant editing in this case,
Yeah.
researching, finding guests, all of that. So yes, I was trying to multitask and, given that it was the first project, I think they also had some funding from the university.
Yeah.
It was steady. Yeah, we also took our time. It wasn't a rush necessarily. And I'm pretty sure, too, it was a limited series, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was less pressure in the beginning, but I'm happy with the product.
So then you had some stints as a podcast editor with Moon 31, and then you started working with the Yerba Buena Center as well.
Yes. Yeah.
What was your experience there like?
At Yerba Buena,
Yeah.
it was great. I mean, I was doing marketing, which, what I enjoyed about it is the industry because it was in nonprofits. I also started a
Yeah.
nonprofit in 2020 in Romania.
Okay.
It's called Her Time Romania. And so a nonprofit for the arts, given that I had the theater background and everything, it was a really good match and the people were great. And then I also worked on a tool that they had for artists, which I really enjoyed contributing to. But I also think, and it showed from back then too, when I was working there, that the nonprofit world is a little bit shaky in terms of,
Mm.
funding, especially now
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
ever. So, yeah.
Yeah. So after that, you started doing a lot of freelance work and then eventually founded your own company?
No, I didn't found my own company just yet.
What's the Her Time
That's
Romania?
a nonprofit.
Oh, it's a non-profit. Okay.
Yes.
Because I saw that you were listed as a founder there.
Yeah. Yeah, founder of the nonprofit.
Okay. Well, what type of work are you doing there?
So I started in 2020 because I was in
Yeah.
the States and I just felt very disconnected from Romania.
What a time to be in the States.
Yeah, also
Tw- tw-
2020. Yeah. But so I felt very disconnected and I really wanted to give back because I was just thinking of all the young people who have so much potential and they are maybe not aware
Mm.
of different opportunities for growth. And that was also a time when I was working for a member of the parliament who passed a law on street harassment. So
Mm.
sexual street harassment when, you're being, I don't know, catcalled or harassed
Yeah,
in
yeah,
any
yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And I was really getting into more of the feminism side of things. So I combined those two. Yeah. And it grew into a beautiful community 5 years later. We've had so many volunteers that made a mark on it. And our mission is to encourage young women towards leadership through networking. And we do that through events and social media, raise awareness campaigns. Yeah, and it's really important work because we're trying to encourage young women to see themselves as whatever they want to be,
Yeah.
whichever context they're in, and also have enough resources to educate themselves and feel safe in their communities and encourage others to, do the same. So
Yeah.
that's what we do there.
Was it a big shift for you when you came to the States in terms of culture? You talk about experiences in Romania, and then I don't know, what was the eye-opening experiences for you when you came to the States? Obviously especially coming into cities like New York and LA.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it was definitely a cultural shock, I would say. Um,
Yeah.
it's very interesting because, and I got this from your conversation with Oscar too, because there's just so much pop culture from the States in Romania. So we
Mm-hmm.
listen to American music, we watch American movies. So
Yeah.
you go there and you think, oh, I know everything about the States. I know what this place is like. Yeah, I know everything. And then you really don't.
Yeah.
Because, yeah. And honestly, for someone coming in, it's even the little things like how much ice is in a cup versus how much ice we have in Europe. Or,
That's funny.
yeah, that's definitely a thing. Or the food, or like when someone asks you, how's it going? And it's not necessarily to like continue a conversation, it's just they say hi.
It's their way of saying hi, and they just keep walking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was shocking.
Yeah.
But other than,
The ice thing is funny. So,
yeah.
like, we just go crazy with ice in the cups.
Oh, yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I got so used to that I had a reverse cultural shock when I moved back to Romania.
Yeah, it's crazy because you think about it, like mostly, I guess, in fast foods. I haven't been in a fast food restaurant in a while, but even in Starbucks, like they're just like it's like all of it ice and a little bit watered down coffee is basically what it
Yeah, yeah,
becomes.
yeah. There's barely any like liquid there. Yeah, so things like that. But then also, I would just say, well, for Armenians too, was a lot of this, American dream, how it is,
Yeah,
or was at least for so many
yeah,
people. Um, so I was just also very excited for the different opportunities and meeting so many people. And one of the things that I enjoyed the most was the cultural diversity of the States.
yeah,
You could go
yeah,
to Chinatown, you could go to an Ethiopian restaurant, you could go to, like a Latin American, like a food fair. So yeah, that
yeah.
was one of the most fun things for me about being there.
Where did this inspiration for you or this motivation for you come? You talked about the work you're doing with the nonprofit, with Her Time Romania, and advocating for women and advocating for people that don't get a lot of visibility or don't get a lot of exposure. Is that values that you were raised with? Or I'm just curious where that comes from.
Not explicitly, I don't think,
Yeah.
raised with those values. I mean, yes, values of, empathy and respect for others, but I don't think there was
Yeah.
this social awareness necessarily. Yeah, so I think it was just through experiences a lot. And then also, to be honest, being in the States around so many people that care about these issues and advocate for them. There's a big activist, you know, circle as well and bubble in Romania, but it's way smaller.
Mm,
So I definitely think that the culture in the States had an impact on me in that sense that,
mm.
made me realize a lot of things and what could be done better in Romania. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting time to be in the States as well. And I'm sure watching from afar, it probably feels like you're watching a movie and being in it as well. It's like crazy. You don't know if one day from the next is what's happening heading in the right direction or are we headed over the cliff? So I'm sure it's always interesting to speak to people from other countries on their perspective, especially people that have lived here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely, I don't know if it feels surreal anymore, unfortunately. We might be past that, but
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. But I work with, people who are from the States and live in the States. So I get to
Yeah.
hear like firsthand what it is like on your end as well. And
Mm-hmm.
also how it, not necessarily how it spreads to the rest of the world, but how it's also
Mm-hmm.
rising in the rest of the world, including in
Okay.
Romania and in Europe. So yeah, I think it's a collective feeling of, okay, and insert whatever after this.
Yeah. Have an open mind.
Yeah.
So how did you get connected to the duo of Lauren and Ariel? both of whom have been on the show, and they're fantastic podcasting advocates.
Yes. So I got connected with them through the public radio New York City lister because I was in between jobs and, I just wanted to find more projects to work on for
Yeah, yeah,
podcasting. Also, getting into production is very difficult. Very, very
yeah,
difficult, especially if you don't have the NPR credentials or, really like a solid portfolio. There's just a lot of competition for freelance producers. So
yeah.
I sent out an email and I put myself out there for, any kind of work like production, marketing, however I can help you.
Intern, whatever.
Yeah,
Just something to get in the door. Yeah,
volunteering. No, because I could have done that at NPR too. But
yeah,
yeah, talking about the hustle culture.
yeah.
Yeah. And then Ariel got back to me and she said, "Oh, we're actually looking for more people at Tink."
Mm,
So I got on a call with her and with Lauren, and we hit it off from the get-go. And then I've been working there since January 2023. So 2 years and a
yeah.
bit now. Yeah.
What's been your experience working with that team?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love everyone there, and I've been learning so much. And I feel like I could also bring in so much of my own experience having,
Hmm.
been everywhere. And like, I also love languages. I'm a big language fan, so I'm trying to use that as well in my work. There's such amazing people, and they're so dedicated to their work. And what's really special about it and what I resonate with, why I feel so lucky, is because the clients we work with are really passionate podcasters about what they do.
Mm,
Even if they're
yeah.
independent or with a network or, whatever their background is, they just love their work. And that really
Hmm.
gives us such a boost to help them. And, you feel like you're
Mm,
making a real difference for
yeah.
creators because it can be tough, but when you have so much love for what you do and there are people who have your back, yeah, it's
Yeah.
really rewarding.
Do you see in yourself how you've grown as a podcast producer just from the time you spent there?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, because I'm also starting to look more into production work as well, because I've just been
Okay.
mainly doing marketing for the past couple of years. There is
Yeah.
so much that you learn from doing marketing and audience development for a show for when you're a producer or
Hmm.
you're developing the content because, you got to do that in mind with how you're going to promote it, how you're going to give it out to
Yeah.
people, how you're
Yeah.
just going to get your listener base and who your target audience is and like all the little
Sure.
things that you take into consideration. I think they go hand in hand. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it helps immensely.
A lot of times, I remember having conversations with some folks who were doing producing years ago, and they're producing these like exquisite, beautiful, like podcast productions, music, storytelling. And then a lot of times, they would just hand it over to the client and be like, okay, now you go market. And so I had conversations with some folks, because they were creating these beautiful shows, but they weren't like putting the time in. And so, a lot of times podcasters obviously need that aspect. They need something, beautifully produced, which is important.
Hmm.
But what did you learn, or, how did you start educating your clients in terms of how to think differently about marketing, especially pre-launch and then once the show is live?
Yeah, I think one of the main things, and this is kind of intertwined with social media, is that the best way to market your podcast is to go where podcast lovers already are.
Mm.
It's so, and this is something we talk about a lot. So it might have been something that Lauren tackled too in her conversation
Yeah.
with
And
you. Yeah.
well, it's something that this audience can't hear enough. So I'm curious on your perspective, like how do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really so hard to convert someone from a non-listener to a listener and to a podcast lover. I honestly try to do it with my friends all the time. And whatever conversation we're having, I just tell them, I have a podcast for you. Like, I know exactly what, you could listen to, but they rarely do. Or if they do, they're not going to listen to a second one as well and get into the habit of it. So that is really the kind of, philosophy and mindset that leads our approach to marketing. And that's why we focus so much on cross promos and, features in podcasting newsletters. And then when it comes to social media, it's a great tool. And my view is kind of changing on it a little bit because I used to think it cannot do much for you, if anything.
Yeah.
It's more so for engaging with your audience. But I think if you're starting from scratch, really from nothing, and, you're really putting some effort into it, you can really build your presence there and get some people involved. So I think it can have an impact. But yeah, definitely going where audio lovers already are. They're looking for the next
Yeah.
thing to listen to. Our queues are full already, so full. But yeah, I'll add it to my queue.
Yeah, it's so, I think it just bears repeating, and I could probably mention on every single episode, like the best place to find a podcast listener is like where people already listen to podcasts. So you can, they already have you in their earbuds and they're listening. If they're listening to a show, clearly they know about podcasting, and they appreciate the medium. And so it's an easy next step to say, oh, I could add one more show.
Yeah.
I've heard the number. I don't know if you agree, but they've said, typically people can have about 5 shows as their core shows that they're always listening to because there's just only so much time in the day. And sometimes like it's a challenge to like get in that circle of shows that you want to be, because you want to make it into people's like regular rotation. You want to be part of their daily routine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment for sure.
Yeah.
On my end, I would say, because I'm always trying to look out for new podcasts, I feel like, I
Yeah.
have about 5 that I listen to, but that are new. And then I have
Yeah.
to drop them, or after I finish the series, it's what it is. But
Yeah.
other times I'm more in the mood of like, I just want to listen to my regular podcast that I'm enjoying. Yeah, it's also, to the question of, are there too many podcasts that a lot of people ask? And then, I see the answer, are there too many books? Are there too many movies? We're already
Exactly.
oversaturated with content from all places. And I think just as long as you know what you're into and you're open to discovering new stuff, there's going to be a place for your show.
Are you still a 1x listener or do you dabble with like the 1.5 at
2 times speed.
2 times? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's just a function of getting through the content, right?
Yes, because
Yeah.
especially for series, which I really enjoy and I binge,
Yeah.
I want
You
to,
just have to.
and I want to find out what happens. And then, but I have to say, there's some podcasts that their sound design is so special and there's so much work put into it that it's really a shame and even disrespectful if I listen on 2 times speed. And it's such a different listening experience. You don't get the silences, you don't get the tension moments. And so I try to slow down too sometimes.
Yeah, and if you think about if you put yourself in the shoes of the podcast producer, like they're taking the time to create this experience.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they just cringe every time they think about all the people that are going to be listening to their show at 2x, But it is, the ones that are produced with like thought and music and a narrative and an arc, you almost have to like give it that time.
Mm-hmm.
But there's only, again, I agree, there's only so much time in the day. And if it's like, interview-based shows or something where I'm just learning something, I always get that vision of like Neo in the Matrix when they're like, "Do you know how to fly this helicopter?" And he's like, "No." And then they plug him something in the back of his head. He's like, "Okay, now I know."
Yeah.
And so it's like, and I feel like that sometimes with podcasts because I'm learning so much, and sometimes I feel like I'll remember something I learned a while ago, but it's just a matter of like, I think it's just a curious mind on my part where I'm just like, there's so much fascinating stuff to learn.
Yeah.
And then there's new big podcasts like the telepathy tapes were just like blowing my mind, and I've been fascinated with that series as well.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of podcasting. Personally, I don't know if I would ever watch a video or watch a series or anything on something that is super niche. But if I read it in Lauren's podcast, The Newsletter, because she listens to so many different types of podcasts, that I'm like, how did someone think to make a podcast about this? But it's so fascinating. So you gotta, it like piques your interest.
Yeah. So talk to me about the start of Eurowaves.
Yeah. Well, Eurowaves came to be because since I came back to Romania, I've still been in the US podcasting space, as you know, with Tink and then also with Earbuds, because I edit the newsletter. But I also really wanted to see what's going on this side of the world and also how we can connect more with each other.
Yeah.
I've been looking into the podcasting space in Romania and, trying to make some observations. It's really, I would say, celebrity and video based on one end, which is not very different than other industries, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is like a huge circle of independent podcasters in entrepreneurship, psychology, all different, they're interesting types of topics, but there isn't really a culture of collaboration as much as there is in the States. And so I just thought to myself, let me see what's going on even outside. Let me zoom out a little bit more than Romania and started learning about different places. And I think there is a need and also definitely a want from the conversations I've been having and from the newsletter community and the listserv I started. There is a want for European podcasters to connect, and even, American podcasters to connect with European podcasters. And even further than
Yeah.
that, I think that's the beauty of it, if we can learn from each other.
What was the experience like, or the exposure after having that conversation with James Cridland on Pod News?
Yeah, with Sam, it was
Oh, it was Sam. Yeah.
yeah, it was a great conversation. I mean, it was more so at the beginning, right, of the newsletter. So I was still like trying to get some conclusions from it. And yeah, well, if I look back at some of the answers I gave back then and what I would give now, I would say some
Yeah.
things still ring true, but there are definitely so many new things that I learned and possibilities and examples I can give on, organizations and podcasters that are really trying to connect as well. Like WePod is a
Mm.
great one.
Yeah.
And then also Studio 80, Lori Martinez,
Mm.
Studio 80 is doing such amazing work. There's also this company in Germany called Colo Media.
Okay.
And they produce a podcast called Dig Where You Stand, which is in English, but about, the history in Germany. So yeah, there are a lot. I'm always on the hunt for new ones to review in the
Yeah.
newsletters. I have to say it's a little hard to locate them sometimes because there are also so many from the Brussels European
Yeah.
Union bubble. So I don't want to kind of repeat those. Yeah, but still learning. Yeah.
Yeah. Sam and James do such a great job on that show. And again, that's another one that it's hard to keep up, because if you're not on top of like the content, like even with Pod News and then the Pod News Weekly, at one point I was up to date with all of them. But I think because where Sam is, and Sam's been on the show as well, he's really a great personality. He's really a great advocate for podcasting as well. And also doing the work of like pulling in all these voices, finding the people that are telling stories. And I really like applaud what they're doing, because they're like highlighting, you know, especially people who are interested in podcasting, to know that it's not just US centric, and then there's so many great things happening. And I think vice versa, you're probably seeing and learning from some of the stuff that, from your work at Earbuds and Tink. And now you can sort of take that back to see what's happening and how you can expand people's awareness of podcasting in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah. And to go off of what you were talking about, Pod News, but also your
Yeah.
work. I mean, Pod News and, your podcasts are such important resources for the industry, and the fact that you're so intentional about bringing in international voices and perspectives
Yeah.
is crucial. And yeah, everyone should do that. And the fact that you're, kind of leading that is also really appreciated. So yeah, I'm really grateful for that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'll always have the show because it's like my connection to the podcasting space. And when I first started, I didn't know anything about podcasting or didn't know anyone in podcasting. But I said the best way to do that is to interview podcasters.
Yes.
So that's how I sort of forced myself into that world, and I started interviewing like the OGs, like the Dave Jacksons and Elsie Escobars, and, the people who were like paving the way early on. And then that gave me visibility, and it just got me excited to tell their stories, because I feel like at the end of the day, that's what I was just trying to do, to let other people know who are into podcasting that there's so many different paths, so many different ways in. There's no one type of podcasting. There's no like one type of voice. And it's been just fascinating, because maybe you think I'll speak to a lot of podcasters in the beginning, and then the show will be over. But now it's just like, I'll never be able to like catch up and meet people. So I love the opportunity to help me continue to like be better as an interviewer
Yeah.
and just practice that skill. So it's like a great tool to have to just, and there's always like new things going on. And I'll even have people that have been on years ago and say, come back on, like what's been happening in your world. So it's very inspiring to do that.
Amazing. And I'm sure, I mean, I know there is so much work put into any podcast, but including yours. So yeah, it's amazing that it's also very rewarding, and it's something for yourself, but also for the community. I think that's the best thing about podcasting, honestly, since I joined the industry, that everyone really is about community and helping each other and yeah, connecting. And that's precious.
Have you made it to the podcasting conferences as well?
Well, I'm going to make it to the one in London this year. Yeah.
Podcast show.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that going to be your first one?
It's going to be my first one. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, when you see Sam, tell him I said hi because he keeps wanting me to come out there. But he and I connected at Podcast Movement like a couple years ago, and he was just in the lobby, and he was just sitting by himself. I came down and introduced him to a bunch of my podcasting friends there, and he's since he's doing such good things with that show, and he's helping the organizers there, and I think just being also what they're doing with the podcasting 2.0 space, just really caring about and what
Yeah.
he's doing with pod fans. And so he's just a great advocate. So
Yeah.
what I love, I think everyone, when you go to your first conference, the experience is like, everyone is so like nice, and then everyone is so helpful, and they want to see you succeed and tell me what your show's about. And, that's been my experience. And for the ones that I go to on a regular basis here, Podcast Movement, Podfest, it really is like a community once you start to get to know people.
Yeah. 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 I'm so excited for it. I'll definitely say
Yeah.
hi. And now,
Yeah.
no pressure at all because I would
Yeah.
love as well to see you there, but no pressure.
Yeah. What are the dates again?
May 21 and 22nd.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's coming up now.
yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah.
So, what are you thinking about yourself in terms of like the work you're doing with Tink and Eurowaves? Like, how do you plan out projects, and what's on your plate, and projects and goals you want to work on?
I think my main goal in whatever I do now that I'm trying to get back into production as well is really finding those clients and those teams and people that I align with based on
Mm.
values and based on their passion for what they do. That's what really drives me at the end of the day. So that for sure, in marketing and in production. And then
Yeah.
with all the connections that I'm building in the European space and with all the community, of the newsletter and of the listserv and all of that, finding ways to actually connect the industries in the different countries. And I was talking to Lauren about this the other day, actually, but it's a difficult thing and it makes you feel a little lost at times because it's something that
Mm.
few people have done before. I was mentioning WePod and Studio 80, but it's
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm just like thinking of different things to start to initiate and to get people more excited about what can be done, really. That's where I'm at. And again, there's a want for it. I think also everyone else is wondering how do we do that because of the
Yeah.
limitations that come from the language as well. But talking about the need and the want for it, I mean, the podcast show, for example, they reached out and they said,
Mm.
let's do something together. And I said, yes. I mean, I was coming anyway, but yes, let's do something
Yeah.
together.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really excited about that. And we're working on some spaces for European podcasters to, network and hang out and meet each other. And I'll be speaking as well. So I'm excited to
Okay.
speak. Yeah, there are also other events that are not announced yet, but whenever they're announced, I will send them to you so we can
Yeah.
share with the community to, yeah, just other European events.
What are you going to be speaking on?
I'm not sure yet. I'm waiting to.
Okay.
I know I'll be speaking, but I'm waiting to,
Yeah.
to see on what.
And have you spoken on stage before?
Not at a podcasting event. No. Again,
Okay.
I wanted to go. I
Okay.
meant to go in the States. I really wanted to go to Podcast Movement. I was considering going to
Yeah.
the one this year too, but it's a
Yeah.
faraway trip and, I didn't get to yet. So I'm excited.
Yeah, they're bringing it back to Texas where it started. It actually, it's so funny because it started as a Kickstarter years ago in 2014, the first Podcast Movement. And there was so much interest because I remember I had just started my show. We were all like excited about podcasting and said, a conference just for podcasting. Whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And then they had to get a bigger hotel because it's so like the Kickstarter like
Oh, wow.
immediately hit their 10K mark. And so they got a bigger hotel, and it sort of took off from there. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure the
it just
energy
goes
was
to
great. I mean, you were talking about the
Yeah,
energy
it was
now. I'm
like,
sure in the beginning it was even more.
yeah, a lot of like entrepreneurial podcasts there in the beginning. It was like, those were a lot there in the beginning. And now it's like this huge thing. I think the podcast movement was acquired. So it's like big. It's like these corporate companies come in with these big booths and stuff. And so it's like really like matured as an industry. So it's been
Yeah.
wild to see.
Yeah.
When you put content together and you think about what you want to write on Eurowaves, like what's that research process look like, and how much time goes into, the publication?
Yeah. Well, practically, logistically, it's 2 hours, about 2 hours to draft it up and
Okay.
publish it and
Yeah.
post on social media and everything. But the research, I would
Yeah.
say it's ongoing, even from before I started the newsletter. whenever I hear of or discover a new company, organization, podcast in Europe, I add it to a database
Okay.
with different countries. And so it's always ongoing. And I'm always messaging different podcasters to meet with them, to have a call or to interview them. And I think in terms of the research for the content, I'm really trying to look out for what's important to podcasters. So if, for example,
Mm,
the conversation on AI kind of started it last issue with interviewing Lori, since she's doing so many co-productions, how does she see it fitting into different languages, which is the biggest
mm-hmm.
thing, and then continued
Yeah.
this issue with Sam. So it's always like trying to keep an ear for, for what's new and for what people want. And monetization is a huge one that I really want
Yeah.
to tackle more because that is very different between the US and Europe.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
So interesting about monetization, because obviously, as from a podcasting perspective, most people are either familiar with the CPM model,
Mm-hmm.
which if you're going to make a living off of that, you need to get into like the tens, the 50,000, the 100,000 downloads in order to make the math work there. A lot of the clients we work with they sponsor basically their own products, they're business owners, so they
Mm-hmm.
create their own sponsorship. And so, or it's working with a niche podcast, like I have a second show called the Vertical Farming Podcast, and I interview CEOs and founders, but we get sponsorship from companies, in the vertical farming industry.
Yeah, I remember
So,
hearing you, I think, being interviewed
yeah.
on another show about that and thinking it
Oh,
is
okay.
so
Yeah,
cool that you thought about it. Yeah.
yeah. It just, I was given a book called Abundance by Peter Diamandis about the future and technologies, and it mentioned food and vertical farming, and which led me to another book called The Future's Vertical Farming by a professor in Columbia University. And then because I used to work in marketing, I was in E-Trade. I worked at JP Morgan Chase in marketing I was in corporate for like 20 plus years. But I think about marketing teams, they have budgets and they have fiscal years, right? And so I said, well, can I create a show I'm going to be focused on sponsorship from day one? And so I want it to be visible. So I made it the
Mm-hmm.
most obvious name possible, Vertical Farming Podcast. You can guess what it's about. The domain was available. And then I said, I wanted the guest to be visible too. So I said CEOs and founders. Because when you look at the guest list, you're going to say, I know that person. If you're in an industry, you can be like, oh, yeah, I know that person. And then I launched it like just as COVID was coming, and I was asking them how much they were spending at these booths at these conferences. And they were like, oh, we spend like $20,000 for a booth. And I did some math in my head. I said, well, for 9,000, you could sponsor the first season of my show. And he said, yes. Mind you, Andrea, I hadn't even released an episode. It was like the light went off. I'm like, oh, okay. And I remembered my marketing days. They have budgets and they're burning a hole in their pockets because the finance people come down and like, if you don't use it this quarter, you're going to have less money next budget. So they're looking for places to spend money. So then that show's generated over $100,000 since 2020. And now I've spun it off into another like company called the AgTech Media Group because I partnered with a website that's doing AgTech news. And so that's led to another opportunity. And my sponsors have flown me to conferences, indoor farming conferences in Dubai and Germany.
How cool is that?
So,
That is such a
so it's,
success story. And also for what podcasting can do and how you can monetize. I mean, that is so
yeah,
cool.
it's interesting to think like I went from zero visibility in the space in 2020, and now it's like I'll go to conferences and these CEOs will come up to me and they're like, "Thank you for the opportunity to have me on the show." So,
Yeah.
you would think you'd be intimidated in the beginning, but what I always tell people is, I'm just curious, and the Podcast Junkie show has helped me become more natural with long form conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have a CEO in front of you, it's the same thing as if you're meeting someone at a restaurant or a bar and you just be curious, just keep asking open-ended questions and just be genuinely curious about the other person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's a really an amazing story. And just your thought process through it and the way you went about it, it's
Yeah.
amazing that you were able to do that. And I think what's just thinking about it in terms of, how that can be done in Europe, what's difficult
Mm-hmm.
here, which is, a challenge in the States too, but a little less considering that the industry is ahead or at a different point, let's say, to not compare in that way, is really brands having, trust in the medium at all and in what the
Yeah,
medium can
yeah,
do for them. That's
yeah.
what's kind of lacking here. Although there are a lot of great branded podcasts that, have done well. There is one from Podium Podcasts in Spain. It was a branded podcast for a bank and it was a fiction show.
Okay.
A fiction show
Wow.
about AI. Yeah.
For a bank.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
interesting. Wow, that's creative.
Uh-huh, really cool. And the fact that they
Uh,
went for it too, and they said, let's do it. So there are success stories, but I think it's a little more difficult compared to the States. There's just generally less awareness too,
Yeah.
and less research and less education and yeah, exposure for that side of the business. But hopefully it keeps growing. Yeah, this fiction show for a bank was a really cool thing I learned about. It's called Unleashed or
Okay.
Titania in Spanish because they did an English version too. They translated it.
They did an English and a Spanish version?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Spanish at first, it
Yeah.
went really well. It won awards, and then they translated to
Wow.
English. Yeah.
I'm always trying to improve my Spanish because I'm Salvadorian, but came here when I was a year old, and thankfully it's pretty decent. But I realized like there's room to grow, and so I've been on Duolingo like every day
Nice.
just to improve and just to get to like a higher level, And so if
Yeah.
there's content in Spanish too, I'd be looking forward to hearing that.
Podcasts are such a great way to do that. Like I was telling you, I really like languages, so I'm trying to learn to listen more in Spanish as well because I
Yeah.
learned it for a few years, but it's kind of so and so, and then
Yeah.
French as well. And yeah, I really
Mm,
recommend WePod's co-productions in that sense. They have a lot of them in Spanish as well. And yeah,
okay.
topics are really interesting. Also, the process they have for the co-production, since it's a consortium of organizations, so they produce the podcast on the same topic. Sometimes similar, the same subjects, other times similar in different countries. It's really fascinating.
Mm,
Yeah, their work is really great.
that's great. So a couple of questions I like to wrap up with. What is something you've changed your mind about recently?
Ooh, I would say AI, since which also wraps it up
Mm,
nicely from the
yeah, of
beginning of the
course.
conversation. But it's really true because, yeah, like I mentioned, I've been really torn about it. And, you know, I think it can have so many great uses. Where I'm at right now is trying to figure out how to use it best to be considerate. But
Mm,
yeah, there's so many great tools. I think what might be, turning people away from it for the moment now too is that there are many companies that are just releasing AI tools. And,
yeah, yeah,
maybe they're not as involved in the podcasting community or the people behind it are not as much. So it just seems like a salesy strategy. And so creators and the people who are really passionate about the medium are not going to be attracted to that. But I think,
yeah.
yeah, there are a lot of possibilities. So that's what I changed my mind about.
What is the most misunderstood thing about you?
Ooh, the most misunderstood thing about me. Good question. Well, then I wonder by who, misunderstood by who.
Yeah,
Not sure. I think I'll take that to my next therapy session.
that's good. Sometimes it just provokes an answer, an immediate answer, or sometimes it just provokes a thought and then makes you wonder.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure after we'll finish the
yeah,
recording, I'll message you or I'll email you and say, "Oh my gosh,
yeah,
yeah." But such a good
yeah,
question. Yeah.
yeah. Well, thanks for making the time. I know we were trying to have scheduling challenges because of where you're at and where I'm at and the times of the day, but I appreciate you being flexible. I'm glad we were able to get this on the calendar. And I was just curious, I just kind of been seeing your name in the potosphere, as I like to say, and we have a lot of, friends in common. And, if you're in the podcasting space a lot, you're going to start meeting the same people and connecting to the same people. And I had seen your story in Pod News, and I'm just glad to have a chat with you and get to know you and see what you're doing in the space. And you're truly like an advocate for podcasting, which I love, passionate about it, and your energy is infectious. So thanks for sharing a little bit of your story here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and honestly for everything that you do for the community and for the industry. And yeah, it was a really nice chat. And now I have a question to take to therapy next week. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
let
how
me
you
know.
know if you're a great interviewer because, yeah, that really stopped me in my tracks there.
Yeah, that's funny. Where's the best place for folks to connect with you and learn more?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's just my name,
Yeah,
Andreea Coscai, on Eurowaves, my Substack. And of
yeah,
course, get in touch with Tink Media. Check out our work, podcast and newsletter. Lauren's podcast and newsletter is so good if you're a
yeah.
podcast lover. So many amazing recommendations. Podcast Marketing Magic, the best resource.
Yes,
And
that's a great one.
yeah, and there's really no gatekeeping there. And earbuds, of course, too.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah,
So many great resources. Thanks again for your time, Andrew. I really appreciate it.
thank you.